Hello everyone, Wade from High Tech Legion here, and with over 1,000 videos uploaded, if you haven't seen it here, you may not have seen it anywhere. So what we're going to be looking at today is the software and firmware for the D-Link DGL-5500 gaming router. This is an 802.11 AC router with AC standards for AC1300, meaning that you have three streams. In this case, you have three streams on the 802.11n, 2.4 gigahertz spectrum, and two streams on the 802.11 AC, 5 gigahertz spectrum, so 450 megabits per second max on the N and 867 megabits per second max on the AC band. Here we are at the setup wizard for the D-Link router. We're going to run through this and show you how everything goes. I got this by plugging my system into the D-Link router and browsing to 192.168.0.1 in my browser. It automatically brings up the setup wizard. Then we can click next. It's going to run through a detection scheme to see what kind of internet connection we're using and attempt to configure that automatically. The second step is to set up Streamboost auto updates, and what Streamboost is a traffic shaping feature that Qualcomm has developed to allow the system to pass out bandwidth as it's needed so that you don't get one device that's sucking up all your bandwidth and shutting your network down in a sense. I know of a few programs that definitely don't behave nicely on the network, particularly those digital media services for downloading software where they will ramp up and get to the point where it's downloading using up all your bandwidth so you can't stream a video in particular on another machine. This particular screen is to set up the auto updates so that they download from the cloud. Otherwise, you'll get the updates in firmware updates only. So I'm going to agree to this and opt in and go next. It's going to test the bandwidth. However, we haven't finished setting up our internet connection, so the bandwidth test is most likely going to fail. And in this case, we can just press OK on it. You can either uncheck the auto bandwidth estimator and put in the amounts if you know what they are, or after this is set up and we know our network is active, we can try to run through the bandwidth test again. The fourth step is to set the password. So the default password for this router is blank, and in this case I would highly recommend that you change the password. However, I'm going to leave it blank for this demonstration. You also have a checkbox to enable graphical authentication. What this does, as you can see here, is it enables a CAPTCHA graphical authentication to prove that you're human. Makes it much more difficult to hack the password. We're going to click next though, and your Wi-Fi network name and password. As you can see, it gives a default of D-Link-CE45, which is actually part of the serial number, and default passwords here, as well as a secondary 5 gigahertz band network, which has a unique SSID with the dash media on the end of it. I'm going to leave all this at the defaults, though definitely if you're setting this up for yourself, change these SSIDs to something that you're going to recognize so it's not the defaults. Also change the Wi-Fi password to something that you're going to remember. You can go ahead and click connect once the setup wizard has been completed, and it's going to go through the process to save the settings, which takes about a minute, so I'll be right back with you. When the system's set up and back up and running, it does forward you to the D-Link front page to show you that your network is working. All we have to do is again type in 192.168.0.1 back into the browser, and that will bring us back to the router login, which we can put in our password. Again, the default's blank, which I left it at the default for this demonstration. We get into the system itself, and the first view we get are the active devices on the network. Right now, there's nothing showing up but that will definitely be updated as we connect things to the system. Under priorities, we can actually move devices around to show which devices have a higher priority. Say you have a machine that you use for streaming your media all the time, and you're going to want to put that up at a higher priority, so that, or a machine that you use for gaming, you might want that higher than, say, your kid's machine that they just surf the internet on, or a tablet device that they're just playing Angry Birds on, for example. Let's go into the setup screen, and under here you can run through that internet connection setup like we did, or you can run through the manual internet connection setup if you're not connected to the internet. Let's check out the manual internet connection setup just so you can see what it is. I have a cable modem, so it detects that I have a dynamic IP, also known as DHCP. You can change the host name if you need to. You can change the DHCP servers to something custom if you don't want them to just automatically be detected. So here we are on the wireless settings page, which you get to by clicking setup and then wireless settings. So you've got some changes that you could make here. You can enable the wireless. You could set a schedule for it so it's only on during certain times of the day. Change the wireless network name or the SSID. Change the mode. I've changed mine to 802.11n only because I have no B or G devices in my network. So 802.11n allows me to get a better quality signal. Auto channel scan will enable the router to dynamically adjust the channel based on the interference in the area. I already know that channel 1 tends to be the best channel where I am because there's less interference on it, so I've turned that off and set the wireless channel. Channel width is auto 2040 megahertz, and visibility status is what will hide the name of the network. If you want to do that, you would set that to invisible. I tend to leave this visible because it can cause some problems with certain devices if the SSID is not visible, and it gives you a limited amount of security to make it invisible anyways. HT20/40 coexistence should be left at enable unless you're having problems with a lot of overlap with network channels in your area. WPA personal for the wireless security mode. This only affects the 2.4 gigahertz band. So unless you're using some enterprise level security, which most likely with this router you would not be, leaving this at WPA personal is recommended. I also would set the WPA mode to WPA2 only, which I've already done. It defaults to WPA or WPA2. The WPA first generation has some security vulnerabilities which WPA2 does not have at this time. Your pre-shared key here can be changed, which is the password to access the network itself. You can also check the box to show the password if you happen to forget it. Same settings go for the 5 gigahertz band, only in this case I have set mixed mode to 802.11n and 802.11ac for the 5 gigahertz band because I have no 802.11a devices, which is an older standard. Again, that gives me a better better quality stream. I've also turned the auto channel scan off here and set the best channel in my area. The channel width, auto 2040 80 megahertz, is recommended so you get your highest speed stream, and the visibility status also is separate for the 5 gigahertz band if you wanted to make that invisible or visible. Your security mode for your 5 gigahertz band is right below that, and same thing goes for this. I would change it to WPA2 only so you get your highest security. Separate password for the pre-shared key. Passwords, of course, can be the same. Same thing, checkbox here to show the password if you wanted to. Wi-Fi protected setup is for the push button type connection. Again, WPS Wi-Fi protected setup has some security vulnerabilities with hacking. So if I were setting this up for myself, I would uncheck the enable to disable the Wi-Fi protected setup, since I don't have a problem entering in my password each time that I need to connect a new device. Network settings. Under network settings, you can change the address of the router itself. 192.168.0.1 is a very common address. 192.168.1.1 is also a common router address that's used. Either one of them should be fine, and that shouldn't be an issue for you if you leave these at the default. You can also change the device name to something that you would know. So when you're looking in your devices on your machine, if it shows up, you know exactly what it is. Under the DHCP server settings, you can change the DHCP settings. In this case, we pass out addresses from 168.0.100 to 168.0.199, up to 100 addresses. Should be more than enough for any home network, and leaving these settings at default is recommended. You can also add a reservation here. So a DHCP reservation allows you to give a device a specific IP all the time when it's available. So one thing you can do, you can pick from the drop-down box here, and it'll automatically fill in that information. You can enter it manually if you know what it is. You can also click reserve down here on the DHCP clients to fill in the boxes, and you click add to reserve the address. In this case, this is my Roku streaming box. I'm going to add this so that it is a static IP address in a sense. We've also got IP version 4 multicast streams. This is disabled by default, and I recommend leaving this disabled unless you need it for some reason. After changing the reservation, we do have to click save, and it takes about 20 seconds for changes to take effect. Okay, the changes are saved, and we are back at our network settings page. So let's take a look at Streamboost. This is where your Streamboost settings are under. So if you decide that you don't want to enable it anymore, you can uncheck the enable box, or say you don't want the auto bandwidth estimation, you could uncheck this box, which I'm going to do, and I'm going to set my speeds since I know exactly what they are, what I pay for from my ISP. And then this checkbox was what we agreed to opt in for updates from them to get the best service. So if you decide that you don't want to opt into it anymore, you can uncheck this box as well. Let's save the settings again. This is only going to take about 10 seconds for this one. And after each time you save, you do have to click the continue button to get back to the page you were on. Let's take a look at the Advanced tab here. Under Server, you can enable the media server, which goes with the USB 2.0 port on the back of the router. So this is the default media server name. Again, I would recommend you change this just so it's something that you recognize. It's easy for you to know. You can set up specific services here so that certain applications are forwarded to certain devices if you had a server on your network for some reason. You've got port forwarding under this section here, which again allows you to do a port forward for a certain port. When a system tries to access that port, it's going to pass it directly to the computer that is set up in each rule. Under firewall settings, you can enable the stateful packet inspection firewall, anti-spoof checking, UPnP, PPTP, IPsec, RTSP, and SIP. The filter is an access control, so you can enable access control policies for your system so that only certain things can be accessed. You can add an in-band filter rule so that only certain IP addresses can be accessed. And you can also set, allow, or deny access to the network using the MAC address filtering. So you've got several ways to use the MAC address filtering. You can have it off, you can have it on and only allow the computers listed to access the network, or you can have it on and deny the computers that are listed from accessing the network. You also have a website filtering rule. So you can add URLs if you want to this and deny computers or allow computers only to access the sites in this list. So in a sense, this is parental controls. If you only wanted a systems to be able to access certain addresses, all your URLs will be listed under the website URL domain list. Schedules are here, so you can schedule the rules so they certain things only take effect at certain times. You also have the DMZ or demilitarized zone, so you can put a computer in your network on the outside of the firewall if you needed to do that for some reason. Under maintenance, we have our admin information for our password, our gateway name. This is where we can enable or disable the graphical authentication and whether this is an HTTPS server or not. Remote management, all by disabled by default, and then you can also change the time zone here and enable daylight savings time so that your time is always right on your router. Under system, you can do a check for a firmware update. We're already using the most current firmware at this time, 1.11. You can also upload the firmware upgrade from your machine by browsing to it and clicking upload. Restore the system to factory defaults. Restart the device. Save the configuration to your machine for restoring it back to the system after you're done setting it all up. This way you have a backup. You would restore it by uploading the configuration back to the system. Under statistics, get a little bit of information on the usage. Since we recently set this up, there's not too much data in here. It's all web access. But this is definitely some useful information if you're curious about where your bandwidth is being used. This also shows the application activity and status. So what this will show you is the type of rules that were used, optimal, good, or best effort for certain types of devices. You won't really see the good or best effort unless you start to really max out your bandwidth. Go back to my network here. This is going to show the active devices on our network. So what we are seeing right now is our router with our internet connection. It shows how much is being downloaded and how much is being uploaded. A hardwired PC and a Kindle. So one thing I want to show you is I'm actually going to fire up a game download on Steam here, just so you can see how the Streamboost sort of works. I have the Streamboost screen up, and I've actually got a download going on Steam, as well as a YouTube video playing on my Android phone. So you can see that the device for Steam is pulling quite a lot of bandwidth, and Streamboost is attempting to adjust that so that it's allowing other things such as my Android device to still download and be allotted a reasonable amount of bandwidth for what it's doing. So this is how Streamboost sort of works. It kind of automatically adjusts the bandwidth as needed for the devices as they're being used, and so you don't end up getting a huge amount of bandwidth being pulled and being stuck, having one device run really slow. This is also where the priorities can come in handy. So, say I use my desktop machine as my gaming machine, it's got top priority. So, but if that's downloading a game and I wanted to stream a Netflix high definition stream on my Roku and I'm having problems, I might want to up the priority of the Roku to be number 1 so that it'll knock the bandwidth back on my desktop machine a little bit to allow for the HD Netflix stream to come through without any problems. So this is a great thing definitely for handling bandwidth so that you don't have an unacceptable experience on any of your devices. Thanks for watching my tutorial on the D-Link DGL-5500 router. I hope you enjoyed this overview, and please don't forget to check out the overview video for the router itself, as well as the full review at www.hightechlegion.com, and subscribe to our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages. Take care.